Hey everyone, this is Dave Phillips. I'm here from Alyce, and I wanted to welcome you to our session today. Before we get going, I wanted to go through a few housekeeping items for our session. Our topic today is delivering moments to build stronger customer relationships, and I think this is probably something that's on the tip of everyone's mind. And so I'm really excited for the conversation we're about to have today. But before we jump into the session, I just wanted to go through a few admin items just to kind of keep you up to speed on what's available to you. So first and foremost, Alyce is all about gifts, and gifts await all of you. And so we'd love to see everyone participate in our session, and we'll be rewarding people with gifts by giving out prizes for people who are the most engaged in our event platform. And we'll measure that by time spent in the sessions and responses to polls, as well as some session chats and questions submitted in our Q&A. And so if you have questions during the session, you can drop them in the session chat on the right-hand panel, and we'll reply in the chat to you. Just a note, if you're in the full screen mode to watch the panel, you'll need to minimize the screen in order to be able to see those questions in the panel. And then what's coming next? We're really excited about all the different content we have. And so immediately following this session at 2:50 p.m. Eastern are the sessions Marketing in the Digital Privacy Era, award-winning ABM experiences revealed, and how to harness the power of community. And so to view these, navigate to your agenda from the top navigation bar and click the next session you'd like to attend, and you should be ready to go. But I'd love to now pivot to introducing ourselves. And so I couldn't be more excited to have Sydney Sloan here. And I'll let Sydney introduce herself, and then I'll introduce myself. But Sydney, welcome today. Why don't you take a second and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Dave. Well, it's great to be here. Congratulations on producing Universe. I know this has been something you all have been working on a long time. I'm the CMO at Salesloft. I've been here for a little over 3 years, also a partner with Alyce during that time. And my 5 to 9 is I have 2 teenagers going to the same high school this year. And so they definitely keep me busy. We love to cook. I try to cook without measuring. So not necessarily throwing things together. I start with an idea and a recipe, but always like to make it my own. And then, anytime I can be outdoors, I have the great fortune of living in California, the great weather. And so if it's gardening or playing around on my lawn or going for hikes, whatever, that's generally takes up my day from 5 to 9.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think there are some similarities there, and nice to meet everyone. My name is Dave Phillips. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Alyce. I've only joined the company in January. So I've been, thrilled to work with a great team in a fast growing company. And we're really excited to have you here today. I think some of my 5 to 9 similarities are very similar to Sydney's. I love to hike and cycle outdoors. I've had the good fortune of being able to coach my daughters and many other daughters over the years in their sports, and that's been fun and fulfilling. And then, just like Sydney said, raising 3 girls. I have 3 teenagers and 1, college age student. So getting them off into college and into high school and into the world has consumed our time, and it's really exciting. So, but it's great to meet you, and I'm really excited about today's conversation. I'm going to stop sharing because that's where we can go into our conversation from here. But I think what we'd love to talk to you about today is kind of creating those moments as a marketer. And one of the things you and I talked about was how you've prided yourself in terms of teaching people how to be more authentic in the business world and how to connect with people in all facets of life. How has that philosophy impacted the way you've approached marketing in your career?
I think things have changed over time. The word authenticity, I'm a big Brene Brown fan. So anything that she says or writes about it, I like to study. And I think when I think about authenticity, and I think about being real, being empathetic, trying to make that emotional connection with somebody. And it all starts also with making the emotional connection with yourself, like the ability to be vulnerable and to share who you are, what you care about, and be human. And I've been in the business world a very long time and have gotten to see that change in the world in a way, in a good way, in a meaningful way, where people talk about bringing their whole selves to work and they talk about their life outside of the work environment. And I think, here's my office. I'm actually in my kitchen, and so that has taken it to a whole different level. And so when you think about that as a marketer, what people want is to be seen as the person they are. And so how do we think about making real personal connections? And I think it's gotten easier and harder in this digital world, because I think, first of all, people are more open to making that connection. But then how do you make it when you don't have the opportunity to meet them in person? And how do you create the time and space to be able to get to know somebody in quotes? And how do you help your teams really think about when and where to take the effort to make the human to human connection, and not trying to automate everything. And I know we're going to go into that in more detail, but I think that the first step in figuring out authenticity in marketing is, first of all, figuring out how to be authentic with myself, and then inspiring that in the people that I have the good fortune to work with.
And you touched on a question I was going to ask you a little bit later, but maybe that now is no better time than the present. It's like, so from your point of view, like, which interactions are the most important ones to try to personalize, and to try and to make, obviously we want every interaction to be authentic, but like, what are the ones that we should invest the most time in to make those personal connections in?
I'm going to break it down into two levels. First of all, I think you have to put things in categories. So the way that I think about personalization is, you want to do personalization when it is, you want to think about it from a one-to-many, a one-to-few, and a one-to-one, because you have to be able to scale. And so how do you think about, what can I personalize that is still meaningful in a way that matters? And I'll start with the one-to-many. So many years ago, I worked at Adobe. I had the good fortune to work on the Adobe Experience Manager product. So spent a lot of time thinking about personalization as it related to websites, and what we could do to make people feel that we, that very light connection. And it was things that were simple as, and you can do this today, and the pictures that you choose to use when someone lands on your website. If you know that I like being outdoors because my cookie settings show outdoor searching, and they figured out that I'm a female, showing a picture of a female outdoors is going to be way better than showing a gentleman, sitting at a desk, that's going to resonate with me when I land on that website and be like, oh, I see myself there. So that's where I kind of the highest level of personalization, where you can pick up signals about people and customize the experience that aligns with what you can learn about them. So that's the easy way. The other example that I use in that is vertical, right? So if I'm in tech, then don't show me healthcare customer story examples, show me technology company stories, and you can find that. So that's the one-to-many approach. When I start getting into the one-to-few, there's a lot of great technologies out there that allow you to curate experiences. I'm thinking of like Uberflip and Follows, and where you can start to aggregate information in a way that is set to, let's say, a buying group at a company. That might even be one-to-one, but where you start to personalize ads for a segment of people. So let me take my target account list, let's segment it into different industries. Where are they in the buying stage? And then I can serve different ads to them based on that. So that's a way that you can get to kind of the one-to-few, where you have a little bit more information, a little bit more time to manage it. Even though the technology vendors are doing a great job in being able to do segmentation and then add that action in. And then what do I do with my one-to-ones, right? So obviously your tier one accounts, you're going to want to really put in that effort. Customers that are in later stages of the buying cycle, once you have a connection, and making sure you convert that early hot account lead into an opportunity, like that's when you start to look at the one-to-ones. And the things that my team, that we at Salesloft look at is really personalized communication, really thoughtful gifting strategies. We're big fans of Alyce, and we use the platform, and it's super helpful. Cameo is another great example of, how you learn about the person and you're doing something unique for them that stands out. We could talk later about why and all the data behind it, but at least let's start with the framing of how do you think about personalization, one to many, one to few, and then one to one.
Perfect. One of the things we were talking about in terms of that authenticity was the notion of sincerity in sales. And that was one of the first mantras of Salesloft. And like sincerity in sales, like outside of the people doing the selling, people don't always tie those two together. When you look at where people are trusted in terms of sales is not always one of the most trusted, industries or fields. So like, what does that mean to you, and how do you foster that, at Salesloft?
It goes back to our vision as a company. We want to create a world where sellers are loved by the buyers they serve. And that means an authentic relationship, right? Love is a strong word. We don't take it lightly. And so that means that you have to build that authentic connection. How that manifested itself at Salesloft was, how do we help our customers make authentic communication, decisions? And so we're not about 100% automation, but we're also not about 100% personalization. I think it has to balance. And so really using our data science team to understand when and where does it matter, where personalization really does matter. What we have learned is that earlier on in the cadence is the time to take the effort to personalize. And there's even a formula. It's up to 20% personalization in the first 400 characters. So really, that's the research. That's the first two sentences where, how can I learn something about somebody that's going to make that connection? Researching on LinkedIn, checking out their social feeds. Who might that knows them, right? Those are great ways. It's not necessarily, hey, you and I went to the same college, we should have 30 minutes, right? It needs to be connected to the challenges that they're facing. If you don't have any of those personal connections, then find out what they care about. Start commenting on their social feeds and learn a little bit about them so you can make that really authentic first connection. So it matters in the beginning. It's also a great time to use video because they can see that you've taken the time to do something specifically for them. So those earlier on in the cycles, and there's some research behind it we'll talk about in a minute, but that's where it pays out in the very beginning, and then funny enough at the very end. So if you're thinking about where do I spend my time, it's earlier on when you're trying to make those first connections. Then you can do a couple of automated steps. That's fine, right? Like being able to, send a reminder, bump them, send a case study that might be relevant. That's not necessarily 100% personalized because you are starting to get through the volume. The last part I wanted to talk about is how deeply we believe sincerity in sales matters, that we actually work with customers to limit the number of emails that get sent during a day. We don't want people hitting the send button without personalization, because for many reasons. So now I'm going to put my techie hat, a geeky hat on, right? We don't want to be spam. We don't want to encourage people to be spam. We're not a marketing automation platform. We're a sales engagement platform. And so making sure that people are within the realms of reason about how many emails should be sent in a day by a person to another person. Like we try to help them stay in those boundaries. And once they've increased and gotten really good deliverability ratings, I mean, maybe that can be adjusted a little bit, but we do try to hold their hand as they go into this, so it doesn't just be another spam cannon. Yeah,
I love the data back nature of that, because it points to where there's where there's connection there, and it makes total sense in terms of the beginning, because then I think you've now earned the right to keep communicating with them, where at the very beginning, if someone is having a canned content, people know it's not, it's geared towards the masses, it's not geared towards Sydney or Dave or someone. So I think that's great. And we talked about automation, And I think one of the reasons, like when I interview with people, or when people interview, when I interview people, one of the questions they always ask me is like, why do you join Alyce? And so one of the things I said is like, I was seeing something in the market as a buyer, as well as a sales leader. And it was the lack of personalization, it was the lack of connection and the lack of sincerity. And so when I started thinking about Alyce as a company, I was like, well, I could try to change this in one company, or I could try to help change this for the industry. And lo and behold, that's why one of the reasons why I'm here today. And so I think because of the digital nature of how we're trying to automate so much, often marketers and sellers can find themselves in this like set it and forget it and just let automation drive the communication, see what comes back to me, and then we start working with them. How are you challenging, kind of that thought process? Now, I think one of it is through your limiting of emails, but like, how are you challenging that at Salesloft as a sales engagement platform?
Yeah. Two ways. One is we run quarterly QBRs with our accounts, and we help make sure that they're using the dashboards and measurements that we have around looking at which cadences drive revenue, right? It's not just about how the cadence is performing. So if you're using a sales engagement platform, any sales engagement platform, you know that you can set it up to be able to test messages. So you can A/B test which email is performing better, or which talk track is performing better in my call scripts. And so we encourage people to do that. You can also look at the volume of activities that your sales teams or SDR teams are doing in a day. So just to make sure that they're kind of on pace, and it could be different for different, there's best practices out there, but I always am encouraging people that less is more. Don't make it about the volume game, make it about the performance game. And so we coach our customers on how to use the analytics and dashboards available to them that are tied to the revenue outcomes. That's the important thing first. The second thing, and I've been on many of these QBRs too, it saddens me when you see customers that have gone through all of this effort to put these programs in place, yet aren't holding their teams accountable for what best practices are. So email only is not a best practice. Again, why not just use marketing automation, honestly? And so when we see going in and seeing that there's no customization being done, their conversion rates are sub 5%, they should be up in the 20% range of open rates. When you're doing it well, you could be in the 20-30% open rates, where in marketing automation, you're like cheering if you get 2 to 3% open rates. That's the difference. That is the difference, right? It's worth the effort because you're going to get people to engage with you. And so, that's when I go in and I see that, it's like, oh, they're not taking time to personalize. And the second part is they're not making their teams accountable for multi-channel. And so we know that if a company uses 3 channels, of course they're going to use email. Most likely the second one is going to be phone calls. The third channel, social, direct mail, personalized gifting, 4.7% lift in conversion. You have to do you have to get to your buyers and in different ways. And we know the psychology. I'm sure that anyone that's a customer of yours, the psychology when you gift, people feel compelled, to give back. You've taken the time and effort to send them something. And so they're going to give you their time in return. Make sure you use it wisely, of course. But why I advocate for Alyce versus maybe the old way, we used to set up, our rooms and let the interns go crazy stuffing boxes, sending, my swag to a prospect. They don't know who I am. They don't want my swag. I mean, it's a beautiful water bottle. Don't get me wrong, right? With my nice new logo on here. But really, what you sent me was choose your own gift, right? it feels like Oktoberfest. It's coming, fall is coming. So I chose the picnic blanket because it's something I can use and it's meaningful to me. And that's the difference, I think, where you take that extra step to curate something, but still let them choose what it is that they want. So there's value in it. Because at the end of the day, it is a value exchange between two people. And that is the information that you share with each other. That is the time you spend with each other. If they feel that there's value in it, then that's what's going to establish the connection.
Great. So we recently heard you talk about getting to yes faster. And so how do you, as a marketer, create better experiences for your audience to help get to yes faster?
Yeah, this was a fantastic session that I got to present with Seth Mars from Forrester at our conference a couple of weeks ago. And he's done some amazing research. Forrester has for a long time. I've always followed them. And you look at, they're studying the B2B buying process, right? For marketers and for sellers. And they're looking at those interaction patterns. So we all know stats around what percentage right now, it started at 54%. I think we're up to 70% of the amount of research a customer is doing before they reach out to you, right? So once it comes inbound, they're already well informed. And what Forrester shared was when you look at those buying patterns of human and non-human interactions, what they have seen is that the number of touch points has increased since COVID from 17 to 27. So there's more interactions now, more non-human, digital, and more human. And the earlier that you can engage someone in their buying process to establish the human connection, I had to write it down because I didn't want to get it wrong. There's an 82% increase if you do it well. So the percent, that is a percent on your closed won rate, right? So think about it. If I just follow the average, which is a 23% close rate. So companies that are using, hey, I need my pipeline coverage to be 5X in order to get, then you're probably in the average, right? If you are doing a better job, then you can increase your win rate. If you're doing a better job of getting that human connection earlier, then you can increase your win rate significantly in the number and the number of touches actually go down as well. So that goes back to that performance. It's not about a numbers game. It's about making every interaction count. And so that's what Seth and I talked about was how to make sure that you're getting to them beforehand. Because if you think about it, we have all these great tools out there that can talk about intent, what's happening in third parties. So if you have set your systems, technology could do this for you. So you're looking and listening using your account-based platforms that are giving you intent signals. Then you want to be able to automate how to make sure that a team that's assigned to that account, or your SDR teams, if they're doing round robin, start working those accounts proactively so they get to the buyer first. Because if you get to the buyer first, proven data, you have a better chance of winning. Second point is you get to help frame their thinking and how they're going to solve their problem. So anyone else that comes after you is now selling defensively because you've already established how that customer is going to think about it. So getting there first matters.
Certainly a first mover advantage. I mean, I think we've seen from time to time, when you're setting when you're setting that agenda, when you're setting that message, and then the competition's reacting as opposed to setting the agenda. And so I can't agree with you more.
This is the rise of the SDR, right? I mean, this is why this role has become so strategic in all the different sales teams that are out there. Yeah.
And that's a wonderful segue as you think about kind of unifying sales and marketing to deliver like moments in your process and delighting your buyers, or as you said, like, loving the salespeople that serve them. What is that handoff and what is that ownership like early in a cycle between your team's SDRs and your sales team?
So our enterprise team, the majority of our tier 1 accounts are enterprise accounts. We have some that are SMB, but the majority are enterprise. And I'm happy to report, we just did a review with our finance team this week. We had 100% coverage on our tier 1 accounts, meaning a tier 1 account acted on something that we shared with them. And then we were at 82% on our tier two. So we're doing a really good job of working our target accounts. The way that we do that is I have an enterprise marketing team that is aligned with the enterprise sales regions. And they work not only with the sellers, but the dedicated SDRs on strategies of how to break into these accounts. Who are the buyers we're going after? What unique things can we do to be able to connect with them early in the stage, but also like all the way through the buying process? We call it sales love. This is what our little internal term is. So they're like, oh, on the win reports, they'll call out one of the enterprise marketers. Nabiha is one of your case studies. She's awesome. Loves Alyce. And they say, thank you for delivering the sales love. And that's what it is. It's that extra time, that creating that moment. We call it surprise and delight. Like, so really it's like, wow, they took the time to know me. And one of my favorite stories to share, not to embarrass her, but we were running a prospecting play with a large account, and we messed up. Our sales team did not show up to the scheduled discovery meeting, and the customer, as you can imagine, didn't really appreciate that. We messed up big time. And so it's like, what can we do to save this opportunity? And so they put their heads together. We did some research. We found out that the buyer was really big into, I think it was Taekwondo. And she found out which dojo he worked at. We called the dojo and got him free training lessons, 1-to-1, as an apology. I mean, talk about going the extra mile. Gives me goosebumps, right? Like, just we are deeply sorry, but in order to give you valuable time back from what we did not give to you, we want to give you these extra lessons of something that you care about. And that worked, but that's going above and beyond, but seriously, like, to that level.
Well, and I think it's a number of things there. Is like, one, when you talk about taking the time to delight, to me, that's synonymous with what we talk about in terms of creating a moment. That delight is a moment. But I also think in that example that you just shared is you were trying to repair a situation in terms of trying to pull someone in, and that notion of being personal and delighting someone was at the right time in the process, and really pulled them in. So that's a great example. And then like, how do your team balance, or do you balance like economies of scale with delivering personalized the personalized moments that break through the noise and spur action? Like, so how do you define how much to personalize and how much not to?
Well, we're kind of looking at the math on this one. It's like, how many accounts are assigned to an enterprise rep? Generally, it's around 100 for us. How many accounts does that mean then that the SDR is kind of, and AEs are working together? And then which ones do we want to put extra effort into from a marketing perspective? So we empower our SDR teams to use all these platforms, and we teach them how to use it. And as people know, the SDR role is a tough one. So you've always got people coming in and out of those roles. And as they graduate into being a seller, then they've gotten those good skills that go with them. So we enable our teams to be able to have access to platforms. And then we spend a lot of time ideating with them on things that we can do to create those aha moments. There is, we set aside budget. That's one thing. Like, how much are we willing to spend on tier one accounts? We're generous, I would say. I've never said no to anything. Because when you look at what our tier one account ACV is and our win rates, it makes sense, right? And then, there's still probably a little bit left over for tier twos and tier threes. But we look at the return on investment of our personalized gifting programs. It's the top 3 performing program that we run. So it's worth it for us. And it gets, I think it gets the mentions too. It reverberates back into our our win channel, because when they talk, we do a great job, our teams do a great job of summarizing our win reports, and then people can learn from the strategies that they put in place. And so many times there are shout outs there. There is one thing that I've always thought about, right? When you look at economies of scale and you talk about win reports, and the congratulations goes to the last mile team, right, that got it over the line. And it's hard, and they've done a really great job. But if you actually go back and you look, going back to the human and non-human, how many interactions goes into a big deal. Marketo has this great visual that maps at an opportunity every single interaction and everybody on the buying cycle. And I encourage my teams to go take a snapshot of that and put it into the win report, so people can see how much effort it takes, that coordination between marketing activities and marketing providing really good content that the buying teams are consuming, to the and it goes by the way, the sales, it follows the sales cycle. So you start to see what are the different activities that matter. Or maybe they went to a webinar, maybe there was a direct mail gift, we added more people into the buying committee. So it really does give insight in what it takes. And I think 27 is low in a lot of these big deals when you start to add in the number of people that are involved. So just being able to showcase, that amount of effort that it takes in order to get a customer to choose you.
And just to highlight,
and it doesn't stop there, right? And it keeps going. We could talk
Yeah.
about that too. It's not just about winning the account, it's about keeping and growing.
Is that 27 interactions or 27 pieces of content, or a little bit of both?
That is the Forrester stat that they track in B2B buying interactions. So they do an annual survey, and it used to be 17, it took at least 17 interactions for a B2B buying process, and that increased to 27 post-COVID. So that is any interaction that is tracked in your systems. One thing that I will say is generally those are a lot of times are marketing automation systems tracking it. And we have gone to the extra step to integrate our sales interactions as well. And I was curious about it. So I started studying, what is the percentage of marketing interactions versus sales interactions? And it varies by team. So on the enterprise side, it's more sales than marketing. And on the commercial side, it's more marketing than sales. But I do track it. I look at, how much effort, like, was it the marketing team? They're trying to demystify, was it the marketing team that had an influence, or was it the sales team that had the influence? The answer is it's both. It's both, of course.
And it certainly, it takes a village, to win every single one of these opportunities. What is the ownership? Like, how far does the marketing funnel go before it comes over? Like, what does that handoff look like for Salesloft when you hand it off from like the marketing team over to the sales team? So that, and I think probably some of the most important components of that is that it's smooth. It is not restarting, a process, but what does that ownership look like?
So I would say I'm not the traditional marketer, where maybe I've converted faster and the market is also, I see, adjusting. I don't believe in MQLs or leads. So we don't run a typical, what people would, a funnel. So the way that we manage marketing does manage inbound. So anything that comes to our website and people fill out I want a demo or a pricing request, that process is a well-oiled machine. And so we have fantastic inbounders that manage every single inbound lead that comes to us. Our conversion rates are over 50% on inbound. So we do a really good job. We've, we study, like, what are the first questions that we're getting asked, or what are the disqualified accounts? How can we provide more information on the website then? So we're helping people decide, is this a good fit for us or not, right? It's good for the customer to understand what we provide, and it's good for our team, so we're not putting noise into the system. So we work the hot leads very efficiently. It's all, there's many automation points for making sure that we respond in minutes. And so we've just done a fantastic job. Definitely hats off to our SDR, inbound SDR team, and our leader who built out that whole process. Last quarter, last couple of quarters, we've been generating about 60 to 70% of all net new business. So it's great. That's the advantage too of being in a market that is surging, and being leader and being known. So that's, that's a long-term investment that we see paying out now. As it relates to the other accounts, so we talk about engaged accounts. We work very closely with the outbound SDR teams on helping. There's a signal that will come to them when the account engagement score hits a particular number. We've integrated 6sense and Demandbase, we use both, into our processes, so they can see those intent signals and what keywords people are searching on, so they know to have customized cadences related to what the customer was looking for in third party or first party. So we've built into Salesloft these integrations that give our teams access and insight into what the account is looking at, so we can be prepared to have relevant conversations or relevant videos that we send. I see you're researching this topic, and here's how we can address that. So making sure that the sales teams are informed about those accounts and what they're researching on, so we can, again, have a valuable exchange of information out of the, from first impression all the way through. That was a lot. I'm sorry.
Every one of us would, I think, are frothing at the mouth to have those types of conversion rates. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Impressive.
Yeah, I'm proud of the team.
Yeah, you should be. You should be. Yeah. And they, I'm sure they're hopefully they hear this and they know how proud you are of them. But you've given us a ton to think about, and I first and foremost want to thank you for your time. You have an event, coming up. You have some exciting things coming up. So we're really appreciative of the effort, and working with you as a partner. There's a number of things that I took away, and I was kind of scribbling down, is like, one, I love the notion of sellers are loved by the buyers they serve. And I think so many of the things that you talked about kind of align back to that in terms of, so one of it is like utilizing the data science team to try to figure out where's the opportunity to plug in relevant personalization or relevant moments, or as you said earlier, taking the time to delight. And what I heard about that was it was like early and late. Two is like practicing what you preach and limiting the email flow so that you're not spamming someone, and that it's not just saying don't do it, but you're putting the restrictions in place. And then measuring results. And it's not just measuring open rates, but it's measuring the actual revenue performance of some of these cadences. And I loved, sometimes I feel like I'm old school or showing my age when I'm talking about like email not being the primary channel, or the only channel, and that it needs to be a multi-channel approach, and that's video, social, email, phone. One-to-one personal is hopefully will come back soon. But I thank you so much for your time. You gave us so much to think about and learn about, and you've always been a phenomenal partner to us. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting us.
Great. Thank you.